And welcome everybody to episode 181 of Two Goalies, One Mic, brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with over 300 beers to choose from. If you're looking to grab a beer, make sure you make it a Fatty Beer. Live music, trivia, entertainment at all their locations, just great vibes all around. And as always, Buffalo Logo Apparel. I am joined by my good friend and friend of the program, Brian Drury. Better known as play-by-play for the Guelph Storm. And adding to the program right now, good friend of the program, good friend, and our main sponsor, Mr. Nick Fatty from Fatty Beer. And as many of you may not know, he used to be a former scout for the Sabres and has a lot of experience on days like today. So, Nick, thanks for joining.
Yeah, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, bud. You're looking beautiful.
Beautiful. All right.
You're looking beautiful. So, Nick, thanks for hopping on, man. Obviously a massive, actually, I won't say massive deal. I know a lot of some Sabres fans are kind of very on opposite sides of the fence of this deal, but I kind of tweeted it out earlier. I'm like, you kind of have to recognize that the Sabres are on a lot of players no trade lists, and the players you may want in a Dylan Cozens trade might not be willing to waive said their trade protection to come here. So maybe that's what you're left with, guys like Josh Norris, who are very similar, at least from a statistical standpoint, to Dylan Cozens.
Yeah, I mean it's looks like a move that both teams are trying to figure it out, right? Kind of kickstarting some players, getting them going, centers swapping spots, and yeah, I mean it's interesting. It's a divisional trade, and some those are pretty long-term contract guys that have had success. So it's an interesting trade for sure.
Actually, just got the full breakdown from Elliot Friedman less than a minute ago. Ottawa is getting Cozens, Gilbert, and a second-round pick for Norris and Bernard Docker. Now, I'm not too familiar with Bernard Docker. I know he's like a depth defenseman. Maybe you know a little bit more about him, Drury, but I don't know. I don't understand why Buffalo felt the need to add a Gilbert, a second-round pick, to that deal. Personally, I don't know. Your thoughts?
I think maybe the perception there is that, and the word you've been hearing from a lot of the analysts today, wherever you're watching trade deadline content, is that, Norris is certainly a more skilled goal scorer. And maybe there was a bit more of a premium on his potential value in terms of what he can add goal scoring wise. I agree with that. It's a risky deal in a sense for both sides, because more so on Buffalo's, and I'll get to that in a second. Ottawa obviously is getting a guy with a lot of size that fits into the type of lineup that they're trying to build. They've really tried to address their size since they started this rebuild that kind of began under Pierre Dorion and lasted a lot longer than they figured it would. So they're getting a guy that has some all-around ability, good 200-foot player. I know this year the way he's looked at times in Buffalo has been hard to watch, but their hope, like Nick said, is that they're getting a guy that's going to get a kickstart, jumping onto a team that's very much involved in a playoff race. And man, this is a big deal for them as well, because tomorrow night they got a hell of a big game against the New York Rangers, who are right behind them by a point for that wild card positioning. So you bring a guy like that in that they think can help them all over the ice on deck for a huge game against the Rangers. It's interesting. Buffalo's side of things, they're certainly getting, in my opinion, a guy who's a more talented goal scorer. In terms of overall ability, I think that they're on a pretty similar plane. They have similar contracts. Norris, obviously, a little bit more expensive, but the concern obviously with him, and I mean, this isn't news to anybody that watches, is his injury history. I mean, we're talking about a guy with 2 shoulder surgeries and a number of other nicks and bruises along the way in his very young NHL career. Like, when this guy's healthy, he's a big time impact offensive driver. He's got great analytics for people that like that stuff. I mean, his underlying numbers in terms of driving shots toward the net and keeping the puck on the other side of the ice are really, really solid. And of course, he's got that release. It's just, for Buffalo, both teams are taking a risk in the sense that they're getting guys that they're trying to kick into a different gear with a change of scenery, Buffalo absorbs a little more risk just because of the health thing. But if this guy's healthy, man, like he can easily be a 30 if he's healthy for a full 82, which we've basically never seen. Like he's got the skill to score 40. But that's the biggest thing. Is this guy going to be healthy for the Sabres?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't. I'm sorry. Oh, get out of there. Couldn't agree with you more. I got definitely Norris has a lot more scoring touch than maybe Cozens is. I'm not sure about the physical side of his game. I do know it's been Ottawa fans in terms of like the Brady Tkachuk standpoint. I think Ottawa fans are happy with this deal, but also I'm not sure how much this matters. But they did just trade away Brady Tkachuk's best friend. Like they are knowingly best friends. I know it's a business, but I know Brady Tkachuk has been borderline upset with the way things have gone in Ottawa, and I can't imagine that this makes him very happy. Nick, just your thoughts. I mean, just in your experience, obviously being a part of the organization in the past, being a scout on days like this, having your input taken into consideration, your feelings on the trade, and of course the Zucker extension, and maybe what's still to come or what Buffalo still needs to do.
Yeah, I'm kind of gonna echo. I liked what Ryan was saying about Norris there. I do. You see the skill, and he's got hands. He's an opportunist. Scores off the right side from what I've watched. D zone, I don't think's his thing. But I guess he's a power play guy on the right hand side in the 1-3-1. And I mean, I kind of look at it as like that's kind of Kulik's sort of spot. There's some other guys who've been there, so. As your team building and peace building, just interesting to see how you fit. Like, because you'd have to give out, if you're not on the power play, how are you going to get 40 goals? And maybe he's going to be on the power play. He's good enough to be on the power play, but it's just interesting there. And then, there's a little bit of team building at the same time. Like, it's an opportunity to get a highly skilled player. So maybe you jump on it. Obviously they did. As far as deadlines and stuff go, usually these deals don't really come together from what I've saw. From my experience, like. It's not like fantasy, hockey where you get a trade in the morning, you make a decision in a half hour or so. Usually it's maybe it's more like fantasy football and you sit on it, it's in your inbox for a while. But no, they're usually developed and thinking about it for a while. So it's my guess is that it's been brewing. It's interesting the second round pick and Gilbert and stuff like that, and the defenseman from Ottawa. So insight wise, it might have happened. The other thing I noticed is there's deals going on right now. That the NHL can only load them so long. They do a pretty good job of delaying and extending those deals throughout the day because they get flooded with stuff that's going on. So, as a deadline, what's the official time for it today? I'm not sure, but usually
I think it's 4 or it's 3 p.m. I thought it was 4 for some reason.
It could be 4 actually.
Yeah. So 3 or 4 p.m. So you'll still be getting deals till this one might have happened a couple hours ago. I think I noticed it leaked a little bit before they announced it. And usually that's the interesting part too. When you're in the room, like see when that's going to leak, the deal's done and then who's going to leak it. So it's always, you look at the phone, look around in the room at the guys and go, I didn't do it, leave me alone sort of thing. So that sort of stuff does happen. So interesting. Yeah.
Your thoughts on obviously the Zucker extension. I was a big advocate for trading him just because you kind of see the market and where it's been at over the past, 48 hours. And you saw that huge return. Who was it? The huge return that Brock Nelson got with the Colorado deal at the Isles. You think, they have very similar numbers, him and Zucker. I thought maybe Buffalo, I don't know how often that conversation happens when you have a UFA where you talk to him like, hey, we're trying to get, max out on your value right now to make this team better, but we still want you back in the off season. I mean, do you think those conversations ever maybe even took place with him, or do you just want to lock him up right now like they did? Or, maybe not chance him getting the free agency?
Yeah, I think when a guy's going to go, he's going to have a great experience. Like teams that are going to acquire him are teams that are going to want to win. Right. And so he's going to go to a team that's going to want to win and he'd be a finishing touch. And I'm sure, when you want to win and you win, you have a great experience. I don't want to leave a place when I'm winning, so that's a little bit dangerous. If you really like him, you got to keep him. Like I get that, and then there's value. And then do you wait on another pick? Cause you're probably just going to get picks. Like these teams aren't going to be giving up tons for that. So, I mean, everyone kind of had a chance to sign him over the summer. Right. So, so I think, I don't hate it. I mean, if you get, it's one of those things. Every team's different. So some teams, like I liked what Brisebois said, like, yeah, I'll trade by picks. I want to have a good team on the ice, and some teams are trade their picks and stock up, and away you go. So I think it takes all types. I don't hate it, I guess is what I'm getting at. I don't hate it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought honestly he would have gotten more than 4.75. He obviously made $5 million this year. I think he exceeded their expectations. I mean, we had Johnny Lazarus on with us last night. He kind of, insinuated like, sometimes a player might just be looking to be comfortable. He's comfortable here. He's probably going to get the most money from Buffalo than he would on the open market. But again, I was surprised it was only 4.75, given the way the market has started to shake out. And how much with the cap going up and how much money players have been signing for. Kind of surprised at the return there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I guess I'm not terribly surprised in the sense of kind of what Laz said. He's a beauty, by the way. I love having him on our show. I think that it's a situation where Buffalo's comfortable with him and what he brings to the ice, and he's a veteran guy that's been on long runs before. He's got that experience, and he's comfortable in Buffalo and working with these young guys. I mean, because it's one of those situations, I think, ultimately where it's a good deal for both sides for what I just said. And also with the way things continue to go in Buffalo, which again, I'm waiting for the day I don't have to come on this show and say this. It makes me so sad. Like I genuinely, I'm not a Sabres fan. I don't know if you could tell that by what's behind me, but I grew up loving watching Buffalo games for a number of reasons. And I'm relishing the day that I can come on here and they're good again. But the way things are going, you do need to kind of keep some veteran guys around that can kind of help guys navigate that negative environment that they find themselves in again. And Zucker seems to be a guy, and again, you said it, Duane, from the team's perspective clearly, and obviously from the fans' perspective, I think he has exceeded expectations, and that's probably ultimately based on what they thought that they could get for him. They feel more value in keeping him around than shipping him out for what potentially they were finding. For sure, they were exploring a market, but keeping him around was obviously a lot more enticing to them value-wise than what they felt they could get for him in the trade market.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Like, I guess you don't want to risk a guy like that. And we all, here in Buffalo, Nick, like there's a lot of respect for Jason Zucker and what he's been able to do with this team this season. There's a lot of respect amongst the players, the fans, the staff. So I'm not unhappy that they signed him. I mean, I think he's being a part of the solution and hopefully turning this thing around. Your thoughts too. I know you mentioned, Drury, that what you look forward to the day that we're finally talking about a Sabres playoff team and not another year added to the drought. But both your thoughts, and obviously this isn't enough. Whether that deal comes today in the next couple hours or more towards the draft, and they just sacrificed a second round pick in this deal to get it done. Again, I think that's a little bit of an overpay if you're Buffalo, but your thoughts on what else needs to be done. Obviously there's questions still on the blue line. We'll start with you, Nick.
What needs to be done? I mean, come on, like that's there's a lot. I mean, it's yeah, I think the good news is the trade deadline is going to come and go for a lot of Sabres, and you get to work hard and do your job and prove that you're an NHL player. So for the players, from the hockey standpoint, I think you're going to see guys be comfortable, kind of relax a little, and sometimes your game gets better with that. I don't think you're going to see the wheels fall off it. I think there's some good hockey players there, obviously. To me, that's a huge question that, you could go down any sort of road, whether it's leadership, whether it's skill, whether it's, systems, whether it's just the foundation of that's just such a big question. Where do you go? So from my perspective, if you can get through, usually I think I read something today that, franchise moves aren't made at the deadline. Typically they're finishing touches and other stuff like that. So if you're able to, I think, as you said too, gear up for the draft, the off season, and, hopefully we do see a big change and I know what I'd like to see, but it's it's hard to get your hands on it. Like, it's hard, you got to have it takes two to tango in a lot of this stuff with trades and things like that. So yeah, I think it's just that's a big question, and they got some time to think about it, and thank God the trade deadline's coming so they can.
Yeah, and again, many speculated that today would, kind of be a quiet day for Buffalo. Even Kevin Adams kind of hinted towards it. But obviously it's been, the complete opposite. Started off with the Zucker extension, and then within minutes, the insiders tweeted out that there's, talks heating up between Buffalo and Ottawa surrounding Cozens and Norris. So, I hope that they're not done. I just hope, get your thoughts too. I'll let Jury answer that question first after you did. But then I want to follow up with both of you about the speculation surrounding JJ Peterka, that he is in fact possibly in on the trade market. We'll kick it to you, Jury, first to the first question I asked Nick.
Well, I mean, like he said, I mean, it's getting to a point of where do you start? Because there could be so many different avenues you go down. Honestly, I'm getting near a point though, and I think that you would very much be in agreement with this, Duane, and I think Hurls would too. I think it's getting to a point now, unfortunately, and I know Buffalo fans will hate this. I think that they need to completely gut this front office. I think that part of what's holding them back is a potentially perceived lack of respect or acknowledgement of the preciseness of the direction that Kevin Adams is trying to lead this team in. I don't feel like a lot of players out there feel comfortable with the job he's done. I don't feel like players that are on the team are comfortable with the job he's done. And you look at a team like Ottawa, who seems to finally be taking a much needed step forward, and look at what they had to go through in not as long a drought, but a similar type of thing where for a long time, since that 2017 incredible playoff run, they have been mired in the muck too. And they went through a couple of front offices. And when Michael Andlauer took the team over, he said, Pierre Dorion, thanks very much, but I got to get a guy in here that I trust. He tapped Steve Staios, a guy that he's had a lot of success with in junior hockey. And Steve Staios is a guy that he's that quintessential quote unquote hockey guy that has a lot of respect among peers for the way he played the game. He's got a lot of respect amongst his peers for the way that he handled that junior team that was very successful at the time in Hamilton, now in Brantford. And I think that his ability to work with young draft eligible guys in that setting did a lot for him in terms of establishing his early NHL career as an executive. I think that Buffalo needs something similar to that. I think when Kevin Adams came out and said, we don't have palm trees here, when he said that, to me, that was him admitting defeat, that he feels like he can't get things done in a positive sense in this market because he feels so disadvantaged by the fact that, it's not 80 degrees there right now. And to me, look, you got to give respect to what Tampa and Florida have done. One of those two teams has been in the Cup final for the last 5 straight years, might stretch to 6. For a long time, those teams were bad. Tampa got ahead of the curve for a while. Think about what Florida was like 6 years ago, going back a decade. Before Buffalo, they held the drought record. They didn't go to the playoffs for 13 or 14 years either. That market was legitimately a joke. And every year at the offseason, people would be like, where are the Florida Panthers moving? Are they going to Quebec? So what happened there, though? Dale Talon comes in, sets a good foundation, and then they get some hockey guys in there that really had a lot of respect, and they went out and they made big splashes. They drafted well, and after they were done drafting well, they took all of the remaining draft capital and some prospects they had, and they flung them out the window, and they've done it again this year with Spencer Knight, bringing in Seth Jones. So I think that Buffalo, we could talk about, they should trade Peterka, they should trade Kulik, they should trade this guy. Ultimately, I don't think it's going to matter until they get a leadership group from top to bottom. And I mean, Terry's not going anywhere, obviously, but despite how Buffalo fans feel about him, but I think that front office needs a serious makeover, and Terry's going to have to, like he said he always would, and at times hesitant with this team, he's going to have to open up the checkbook and pay somebody to come in and do that, because shuffling around and going, oh, well, we'll get Kevin Adams. And I don't know Kevin personally. I'm sure he's a nice guy. But to me, it looks clear that the team doesn't respect him. The rest of the league doesn't necessarily take him seriously as a hardcore NHL executive. And I don't think that Buffalo, it's not impossible to do this. I don't think Buffalo is going to be in a position to truly turn things around until they have a rock solid front office in place that can set a new tone there that sticks. Because so far it hasn't.
Kick it over to you, Nick. He brought up Peterka. Obviously, you saw the speculation rumors about JJ Peterka that started last night involving the Rangers. Started with Emily Kaplan during the game last night, stating that Peterka should be a guy to keep your eye on. What sense of it, especially heading to his RFA year where you control his rights? What sense does it make to trade a guy like JJ Peterka, who has done nothing but progress since he started his career in Buffalo? Is this a situation where you're trying to genuinely bring in a big name player as part of, because you have to get more than one piece back if you're trading JJ Peterka. But having said that, could this also, maybe even in your experience that you've seen in the past, where the player heading into his RFA year maybe has made it known to management that he doesn't wish to stay here long term?
I mean, I don't know that part of it, but I do know that, Peterka, it's hard to do these sort of deals right now, a guy like Peterka, but at the same time, every player should be available for the right price. I mean, that's just the game that, that's pro hockey. So if he's a piece in a bigger one, in a bigger deal that helps change your team, kind of what we talked about a little bit before, it usually doesn't happen on the deadline, but usually sometimes these conversations come up and the tire kicking begins now, when teams are looking for it in, June, July, August sort of thing. So the idea that his name's brought up definitely, it raises some eyebrows, but, it might just be tire kicking. At the same time, if it's a part of a deal, like any team would, that if you could trade, a good solid player like Peterka for something more, absolutely. You don't really know that until you have these conversations. So stuff that does start at the trade deadline does marinate for a bit and does come to fruition later. I've seen it firsthand. So maybe I something that quick, that would surprise me, but who knows? I mean, there's been some big names moving around, but I like Peterka's game. I think he, like you said, he's excelled. He's in a good spot. He's an RFA. You can kind of do some good stuff. So I think they like him too. You can tell by how much ice time he gets and all the other stuff that he's on. So it's hard to say, but if it means a deal down the road, maybe that's where the smoke is.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you a lot there. Obviously, I think there's been a lot of, if you're Kevin Adams, how are you not scared to make? I mean, I was even scared a little bit dealing Cozens, just because, we've seen how it's gone with Eichel, how it's gone with Ryan O'Reilly, how it went with Reinhart.
But you can't trade scared. You can't. You know what I mean? Yeah, no,
exactly. No, I agree.
You guys got to make moves.
100% agree with you, but I wouldn't blame him if there was a hesitancy there, because those are 3 deals that he made that blew up in his face. And I believe he was the one that made the O'Reilly. No, he wasn't the one who made the O'Reilly trade. No, he didn't make that trade. I think that might have been Tim Murray. I can't remember who.
Which one? To us? Coming to us?
No, trading O'Reilly to St. Louis.
Oh,
was that Botterill?
I'm pretty sure that's Botterill. Pretty sure.
That was Botterill.
Yeah,
okay.
That was Botterill, yeah.
It was Botterill. Okay, yeah. So you can't be scared if you're going to be a GM in the NHL. If you are scared, then you shouldn't be a GM, plain and simple. JJ Peterka is a guy that I think would be as close to untouchable as you can get if you're not named Dahlin and Tage Thompson. I think every single player on this roster, after those two names, should be available, considering you're about to go 14 years in a row without making the playoffs. And even saying that, like, even you look at UPL just signed a 5-year deal, and he's probably having his statistically worst season in his NHL career after signing almost a $5 million a year deal.
It's kind of what goalies do, though.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like kind of what they do.
It's crazy.
Like goalies, you pay, Let's be honest.
It
They're all
stinks
good.
because
They're all good.
Yeah, it stinks because I think he is a good goaltender. I just think he's his own worst enemy. I think that mentally he's a pretty weak. Maybe you're a coach, you were a scout, Nick. How important is it to be mentally sound if you're a goaltender? You got that next shot mentality. Don't let a goal get to you. Don't let a bad game get to you. You have to move on to the next shot in the next game.
Yeah.
I just don't see that in UPL. I see a lot of that in Devin Levi. I think that, if you line up Levi next to UPL and the careers they've had so far in their development, at this point in Levi's career compared to where UPL was at the point Levi is in, like Levi has blown UPL away. Like, I don't think UPL ever even had a 900 save percentage in Rochester. Whereas Levi is, looking at, if there's a goaltender a year award in the AHL, he's looking at winning it this year. And you look at his numbers in college, just always been phenomenal, elite numbers, kind of reminiscent of the career that, Ryan Miller had coming up from Michigan State and then to Rochester and the career he had. I'd almost say that, that might be your franchise goalie at this point. I would totally be on board with trading UPL if the price is right in the offseason, because I just don't see him living up to that contract.
I mean, to me, I think you need two goalies. That's the NHL. I mean, unless there's very few Hellebucks, there's very few of those sort of guys. You need two goalies. A lot of winning teams. I mean, who last year, who was Bobrovsky won, right?
Bobrovsky, yeah.
Yeah, and he was down. He signed a big contract and he's down. Then he's up, then he's down, and he's all around. And other guys carried the mail at different times for them the year before. Mm-hmm. Guys who win the cup, usually there's a two-header dragon. And I think that's where even UPL and Levi could be that two-headed dragon next year. So I think there's a lot of good goalies out there. And I think, I think what they're doing, Levi's great. That's the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Goalies need a net to also you got to play to get better. So, I mean, if they trade UPL, that's okay. Like, if they keep him, that's okay. He's been fine. Going back to compete and mentally strong and all that other stuff, Levi competes hard, but he's still not 6'4". He's just not there. Like, at the same time, he competes hard and shows unbelievable, like, flashes, and consistency. UPL is 6'4", and maybe some goals get to him. All goalies have ups and downs. So I don't think the problem with the Sabres is goaltending. I don't. I think there's more. I think it's compete questions and all sorts of other stuff. Obviously, bad goaltending is no good. Good goaltending saves you, but to me, there's deeper things.
Your thoughts, Jury?
I agree. And I mean, I agree with what you said too, Duane. I mean, I think everybody on this roster should, have their head on a swivel. I just don't think that there's basically anybody on this team. I guess I'd be willing to, exclude Thompson and Dahlin, but everybody else, even those guys though, I mean, like, the way that this team performs, it's like, how could anybody justify being like, yeah, I deserve to stay here? I don't know. But again, I really do feel like what I said before is, you can trade whoever you want. I just don't feel like they have solid leadership in that front office and the way that they're trying to put this thing together. I was having a conversation with Clarky, my co-host on our show, big Leaf fan, obviously. Like, when you look at Buffalo and you look at Kevin Adams and the comments about palm trees and, well, it's cold here and people don't necessarily want to come here, it's up to you to make the destination favorable for people to go to. Most guys in the NHL, I would say 85 to 90% of the players just want to, have some comfort and flexibility in terms of their living situation and their contract for their families. And B, they want to win. They want to be in a winning environment. They don't care if it's minus 40 outside in January if they win. Edmonton's pretty cold, boys. Like, I've been there numerous times. It's really cold there right now. Like, it's minus 25 and the wind chill's insane. Yeah. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl both like, yeah, give me 8 more years. So you have to, and think about how bad that organization was. First overall pick. Like, that was a tire fire. The Leafs, supposedly the hockey mecca of the world with like this huge fan base. 04-05, they go on one more run in the playoffs with Pat Quinn. The lockout happens. Then they didn't make the playoffs until that 12-13 shortened season where it was a miracle they got in. I almost don't even count that with that Boston Game 7 collapse. But then they didn't make it again until 16-17, Matthews' first year. That's Toronto. The Leafs have more money than anybody to spend on scouting, investing in their draft capital. They didn't make the playoffs for ages. It's cold in Toronto too. Like the problem with Buffalo is that they have people that are in charge of running the organization that have not set a good foundation and a good culture for winning. I agree that, should they trade UPL? I don't know, maybe. I agree with Nick, though. I really don't think that most of this, if any of it, is his fault. So, like, if you're going to look at a goaltender and go like, oh, well, he's got like an 880 save percentage and that must be Buffalo's problem. I mean, look at the way they play out there, man. And the way that they play for their teammates. It's like the culture is horribly broken, and they thought bringing Lindy back in would fix that, but that it's not Lindy from 2005.
No, it's not.
It's a very different team. So I don't know.
How much experience did you have with Lindy? I know you got to get out of here, Nick, and we'll get you going, but just some of your final thoughts, some of your experiences in the past while working for the organization. I don't know how much experience you had with Lindy per se, but, I mean, what more, how his coaching style obviously has changed from then and now. Like, I feel like this is a good fit for what he wants to accomplish. I think Josh Norris is genuinely going to do the things that Dylan Cozens couldn't, and it does suck because I think Dylan Cozens, after that Heritage Classic game where he knocked out Matthews, knocked out Bunting, and got kicked out, like, I always saw him as a future captain at that point. And then over the last 6 months, I just really I've gotten to the point where I'm okay with this deal. But, knowing Lindy and the way he wants to coach and then and now, what are your thoughts on what more needs to be done? I know I already asked you this question, but from a Lindy perspective, what do you think he wants more of out of this team? And, going forward, with the additions, whether it's at the draft or, via trade in the offseason?
Yeah, I think Lindy, I mean, first and foremost, he's a great dude. He's just a great guy. He's a, you meet him off the ice, on the ice, in the locker room, in the meeting room, and he's a solid human being, just a great guy. I mean, he's been around, and just like I don't think, blaming even going back to coaching, like he jumped into this, and this is,
he inherited this.
As Drew was saying, this is 14 years of this does, you don't just, whitewash the windows and you got a new car. Like it's crazy. Like there's lots of stuff. So I think Lindy is I like him as a coach. I think, whenever you bring in a new coach, you're going to get a spark. I saw a spark at the beginning of the year. There's a little spark, just like anybody who, if someone changed coaches right now, you're going to get a spark. Is it the long-term man? That much like goaltending, coaches are good. Coaches have different things. Eventually players get, a little bit tuned out here and there. There's very few John Coopers out there. There's just not. And I think Lindy's not the issue here. I think there's just culturally, there's something there. It's almost like just needs a refresh, like a total knock it down, build it back up. But we've already seen that too. And then you see guys go, and then you worry about, they're good. I mean, the hardest part I saw was watching Jack Eichel in the world, in the Four Nations. Like he was our guy. Like we had that guy. Right. And he's taking not only is he, creating, he's on the defensive side, taking the biggest face off of the year, 5-6 seconds left against Team Canada in the third period on a tie game. They trust and won a cup, and we couldn't wait for him to get out of town. Some people. Right. And it's just there's just something going on there. And I don't think it's totally lost, as Ryan would say. Florida was that team. And going back to where the players sign, I think people want to win. They want money, or they want to go home. So what do we got right now? So, okay, Zucker probably saw money and goes, okay, I like that, because we're not winning. Maybe you believe we're not in a cup contention part right now. He's not from here. So maybe the money works, right? So you look at other guys, like how does that fit into us bringing guys in and blame, money is one of the things, but culture, the Green Bay Packers are not a place. So guys in the end, why is Green Bay always good? Like tiny town. It's not New York. It's not Dallas. It's not, Tampa Bay. It's not LA or Vegas or any of that. People, it's culture, it's tradition. And, that you got to start somewhere. So hopefully, it's starting soon. And I guess, I do have to get going a little bit, right now, but
no, we can let you go.
Yeah. I ramble a little bit too. Talk fast. My first time doing this, but I appreciate you having me.
No, you're fine, buddy. You're fine. I'm glad they get you on for the first time. I know you've kind of made cameos in the past, but it was good to get you.
Well, I send little texts. I'm a terror on my one-liners. Yeah, I can get you there. I can get you on those. But talking on camera,
Nick,
is not my thing. But,
Nick, you did a fantastic job, man. Anything you want to promote? I know you're obviously you being our lead sponsor with Fatty Beer. Anything you want to promote for Fatty?
Yeah, we got St. Patrick's. St. Patrick's Day is coming up. We've got a lot of cool stuff at all of our locations. We got 6 locations in Buffalo, 1 in Rochester, New York, and 1 in Columbus, Ohio, in the suburb of Westerville. Pop in. There's a lot of good stuff. Craft beer is, great and still going strong and undefeated. We actually introduced not craft beer, but we have THC seltzers as well now in our locations in New York State. But we also have non-alcoholic drinks, which are huge. I've been big into those for a bit. So we got a huge variety on non-alcoholic drinks. And then it is kid-friendly, dog-friendly, and all that other good stuff. So try our world-famous Drury. When you get to Buffalo, come in. I know you got your capital stuff. When you come to Buffalo, come in and have a chicken sandwich with me and a beer with me and Duane at Fatty Beer, and we'll have a good time.
Absolutely,
Where do I
man.
sign? Where do I sign?
As soon as my leg is all healed up, I told you about that, Nick, right?
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. Broke both my fibula and my tibia. Got an 18-inch rod in my leg now, and currently on the mend. But I can't wait to get back into Fatty Beer and with you, Greg Day.
Get out of the cave you're in right now.
Going crazy over here. Thanks for hopping on though, Nick. I know you got.
All right, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Yeah. Go Sabres. Right. Let's figure it out, right? Okay.
Go Sabres.
See ya.
See ya. That was Nick Fatty, obviously owner of Fatty Beer, but also a former scout for the Buffalo Sabres. He's been in a lot of those war rooms. He's had a lot of conversations on days like today. It is cool to get his input. Obviously, we are. I mean, can someone is the deadline 3 o'clock or is it 4 o'clock?
It's 3.
I always thought it was
3
p.m. 3. Okay. So we're a little bit more than 2 hours away from the deadline. Obviously, a lot of deals, and from what I'm seeing, the Ranton into Dallas deal has been made official. I think they got an extension done with him. It's obviously going to lead the headlines today. I did just see a tweet from Elliot Friedman too about. Let me see here, another deal that just went down with the Penguins. Penguins are flipping Luke Shen to the Jets. For a second rounder and a 4th rounder, they're going back to the Penguins. So I think he was initially with Nashville, wasn't he? I believe.
Yeah.
Or no? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he was with Nashville, got flipped in that deal to Pitt, with Novak going the other way too, and now Pittsburgh has flipped him, which I think a lot of people were, kind of thinking they would do. Smart move, honestly.
Agreed. And I'm looking a lot of like the analytics too here surrounding. Mike Kelly just kind of tweeted out they're kind of like grading cards between Cozens and Josh Norris. Overall, he ranks, Josh Norris at a 66 while Cozens at a 77. I have to imagine his injury history plays into that quite a bit, right? Like, he's definitely, there's a lot of meat left on that bone with Josh Norris. He's had a couple shoulder surgeries and, hopefully, he rebounds off that and becomes the player that they hope he can be. To your point earlier, you think he can be a 40-goal scorer, no problem. They rank his shooting much higher than Dylan Cozens. Playmaking ability, not as high. Puck moving, they've ranked him a 28 on a puck moving compared to a 87 with Dylan Cozens. I don't know about all that. This guy must not be watching Dylan Cozens much this season. But yeah, I don't know. I'm okay with the trade. After seeing what I saw last night, another game where, your captain is getting mauled in front of your own net by multiple players and Dylan Cozens was just kind of standing there. He kind of looked to the bench like he needed permission to get involved. Like, That's not the guy that we saw 3 seasons ago that got him that big contract. You know, I mentioned it twice already. I go back to the Heritage Classic game where he took a run at Matthews and then fought Bunting and then kicked out of the game. He's sitting outside the glass with the owner, Terry Pegula, watching his team beat the Leafs, which I think we can all agree is a great thing. He has been night and day different player from that guy. And I was done with him after last night. Seeing that clip of him just not getting involved in defending his captain, who had three Tampa Bay players all over him. I was done with him right then and there. But yeah, I'm okay with this trade. I think the Sabres win it if Josh Norris hits that ceiling. You know what I mean? That player that he was drafted to become. Your thoughts here, Ryan, and do you think Buffalo's day is over? Obviously Zucker was on the trade block. He's now signed. Dylan Cozens is gone. The only 2 guys that really left available would be Henry Jokiharju, right-handed shot defenseman, and then Alex Tuch has been speculated a lot about. I personally don't want to deal Alex Tuch. I think he should be a priority to bring back. I think he's a very good leader for Buffalo. And then I guess JJ Peterka.
I think that they probably shouldn't be done based on the conversation we just had over the last 45 minutes. I wouldn't surprise me if they are. Like, what it's really going to come down to, I think, is for those guys you mentioned, does Buffalo feel like they're going to get the type of value that they want from a contending team, which would basically be the only kinds of teams that they would be dealing those guys to? And are there enough contenders out there that still need pieces like that will pay up a premium quote unquote price for those guys? For Tuch, probably he would get you the most.
Yeah.
Jokiharju, I'm not really sure what kind of value you'd expect out of him. A 3rd or 4th round pick, maybe. I don't even know. And Peterka is a guy I'd hold on to for now, but he would be a guy that would be right up there equal with Tuch for a different reason, because Peterka's got that pure offensive sniping ability, but teams heading for a playoff push probably already have that and would look at Tuch as a guy that could play in all situations and be a little bit more well-rounded. There's still teams that are out there shopping around.
Bowen Byram too.
Yeah, Bowen Byram, a guy, for what you gave up to get him, that'd be a hard trade to swallow depending on what comes back. But again, like, I feel like you could trade anybody on this team and it won't really matter until they get a major shakeup in the front office and they bring in like Terry really has to open the checkbook and spend to get some guys in there that are like hardened hockey guys that have respect in the league right away, that know what they're doing. And I think that what he needs to do is probably try and go and reach into another team's front office for somebody's assistant GM, or maybe a guy who's a president of hockey ops that would want to be a GM again, and go that route, because I think that that's the only way that you can.
It's desperately needed.
Try and reset this thing. But look, like, at end of the day, the Sabres did get a really good, talented player back, a different player than the one going out, and his health will definitely hinge on how well this turns out for the Sabres. But man, when the kid's healthy, he can absolutely rip it. Like, he's a really, really talented scorer. He really is. You're
looking at a great top 2 centerman if he pans out. And Tage Thompson, well, it might jump back and forth between Tage Thompson and Yuri Kulik, who you've really shown a lot this season. But then obviously Norris as your second line center, McLeod as your third. Brendan Tanev to the Jets.
There's the Leafs. There's the Leafs getting involved too. They got Scott Lawton, which has been a rumor for 3 months. So the Leafs, Steve Dangle and Clarkey will be happy with that. Lawton will add a lot to that lineup and bump some guys out of it that, quite clearly shouldn't be playing for them. And the Jets, that's a great deal too. Getting Tanev in there. Okay. And that's the type of thing that the Jets needed. Getting Luke Shen and Brandon Tanev in there that's exactly the type of move that a team like the Jets should be doing. They don't need to be big game hunting. Much like my Caps on the other side. Like so far, they bring Beauvillier in. I honestly would have been fine if the Capitals did nothing because of how tight that room clearly is. But they go out anyway.
They've just been a wagon this year, man. They've been my favorite non-Sabres team to watch. They have been
insane. Insane.
Not unexpected too, right? You as a guy who follows the Capitals as closely as you do, as a big fan as you are, like how unexpected was this season for you?
Pretty unexpected. I mean, based on how last year went, I thought that either because the way they played last year, and keep in mind, last year was very much about kind of similar to the way 2018 started for them, which obviously turned out very different. It was about a lot of guys moving on and then bleeding a lot of their youth that we've been talking about for years into the lineup, the Protuses of the world, McMichael finding more solid footing, and he's exploded this year. It's one of those things where Washington has kind of become the Detroit of the late 90s, early 2000s, where they have no problem putting guys with the Hershey Bears for 2+ years and letting them marinate down there and expand on their games. And then when they come to the NHL, they allow them to have a lot of runway because they've seen what they did in the AHL, and they're patient and go, okay, Connor McMichael, you didn't, come in and score 30 right away, but we see where it is. And look what he's doing now. He's going to score 30 probably. Alexi Protas has been, Alexi Protas has been a revelation, plays with Ovi a lot, with Strome, and that is the closest thing I've seen in a long time to that old school Backstrom, Ovi, Mike Knuble line. And Protas even bigger than that guy. So like he's turned into an incredible find as well. Rasmus Sandin, Clarkie likes to tease me about him. He's been a revelation back there. He's been so good. Like
he's really turned it around, right?
Oh my God. Has he ever benefited from the coaching staff in Washington? Sometimes that's just the thing where a guy gels a little better with a different type of group. And that's certainly been the case with him. Jacob Chikrin, which is my number one priority. They got to get that. They've done the goalies. Now they got to get Chikrin re-signed because that kid has stepped in and been an absolute monster. Every move they made in the offseason has been a literal home run, if not maybe a triple. Like you look at, like Matt Roy's been injured at times back in the lineup. Unbelievable addition to this team. Jacob Chikrin, unbelievable addition to this team. Logan Thompson, top 5 goalie in the league, maybe top 3 right now, the way he's played. Incredible stuff. Like, I either expected they'd have a moderate improvement, maybe jump up from like 8 to 6 or 5, or they would creep back down a little bit and some of those young guys would take an even further step kind of backward. And it's been the complete opposite. I think if Spencer Carberry doesn't win Coach of the Year, I might flip a table over. I know there's other guys that are deserving, and Winnipeg certainly would be in the mix there. Tampa again. I'm sorry. Like if Spencer Carberry isn't the Jack Adams winner, I might riot. I'm floored by the season
I agree. I agree.
And it's all
like,
led
how do you
by
not make
their
him
veterans. Yeah.
How do you not give him to the Jack Adams? Because I mean, if you're not voting for him, I mean, I don't know, who are you voting for then? Because to take that team compared to where they finished last season and literally put them as one of the number 1 teams in the National Hockey League, and to see, I mean, obviously led by Ovechkin, and it's kind of crazy. I think he's going to break that record this year. Like it's absolutely insane. And
looks like
you've seen me tweet it out multiple times. The guy would have over 1,000 goals if not for lockouts and COVID. And I think, judging with the high level he's still performing at, how does he retire after this season? Like, why would you? You mean you'd be a 50 goal scorer this season if not for the injury, and he comes back and he doesn't miss a beat. It's like he never broke his leg. I know it's crazy stuff, and honestly, like I have a lot of mixed feelings about the way that this last stretch drive. We're sitting here, he's 10 away from passing. I have a lot of mixed feelings about the way it's being handled. Like, I genuinely think that there is still like a modicum of disrespect when it comes to the guy. And it's because he's not like a good old corn-fed Canadian boy. And they don't, there's still people out there that like don't
respect. Like you're already seeing people coming out and trying to discredit his pursuit of it. And I love this guy, and I know he didn't mean like the ill will that some Caps fans took from it when he made the statement. Like Darren Pang's getting a lot of flack for his one trick pony comment the other night in the Rangers game where he scored. And, you know, I wasn't super bothered by that because I know he didn't mean that in the literal sense, because Panger's one of the smartest guys out there. But a lot of people do, you know, refer to him as a one trick pony, and he's not. Like, I'm emboldened to say, if you think Ovechkin is just a one-timer merchant, I genuinely think that you should stop watching the sport and go do something else. Take up crokinole or something. No disrespect to crokinole, grandma, I'm sorry. But do something else with your time. Play video poker or something, because you clearly don't understand the sport if you think that this guy is just a one-timer merchant. And the other thing that he brought up that was strange to me during that broadcast was in 3-on-3, he said, you know, you have to consider the advent of 3-on-3 overtime being an advantage for Ovechkin that Gretzky never had. Do you want me to tell you how many 3-on-3 goals Ovechkin has in his career? He's got 12.
That's it.
I mean, it's negligible. Yeah. And then people will turn, they'll go, oh, well, what about the empty netters? It's a goal.
How many of them? First off, how many empty netters did Wayne Gretzky have?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I think it was like in the high 40s. I'm not sure. Maybe even high 30s. Ovi's the all-time leader, obviously. I think he's somewhere around like 54 or something like that. It might not even be that high. But it just bothers me that people are still trying to discredit this guy. Like, he's been easily the most entertaining superstar of his generation, maybe of all time. And I know people will, you know, curl their backs at that a little bit and say, oh, well, you know, Sid and McKinnon and this and that. Those guys are entertaining for multiple reasons as well. And what they're really laying their crutch on with those guys is the winning. Yeah, winning is entertaining.
Yep.
But nobody's done things the way that Ovi has, played the way he has, and consistently scored, which is the hardest thing to do in the sport, at the level he has, having as much fun as he has. I genuinely believe that he is the most marketable star that the NHL has ever had in it. And I'm not saying that. Sorry, Duane. I'm not saying that to discredit Wayne or Mario or Rocket Richard or Gordy or any of the greats. The reason that he is the most marketable star they've ever had is A, the way he plays, his superstar output offensively, his personality, and the advent of social media and the expansion of cable networks to be able to take in way more games than people back then were able to do. You couldn't turn your TV on in Edmonton in 1984 and catch, you know, Blackhawks Bruins. You got Edmonton games. There's like 12 channels on TV. So that's part of it too. Social media and the internet has made it. Him and Sid came along at the perfect time for the National Hockey League. And it still really grinds my gears that people are like, trying to discredit him or going, oh, well, you know, he's only got one cup. He's only this, he's only that. And it really bothered me too last year in the midst of a tough season. I mean, they made the playoffs where people were going, oh, you know, Washington's turning into a sideshow and it's just all they care about is getting Ovi this record. And, you know, he just cares about breaking the record now. He doesn't want to win anymore. Like, what else does this friggin' guy have to do? 3 Hart trophies, more Rocket Richards than anyone. He's going to break what many said was an unbreakable
record. Agreed.
And he's an unbelievable captain. You hear every story from every guy that's ever played with him are like, this guy's an unbelievable leader. He's hungry. He wants to go out there and run people through the wall. It's not just about goal scoring. But people sit there in their chairs and they're like, oh, you know, all he cares about is scoring and blah, blah, blah. The guy is a winner, and I wish more people referred to him that way because it's a joke the way he still gets perceived by some.
No, I agree. I think the political side of things too has part.
I don't give a rat's ass about that.
I agree. No, I agree. I agree, but I think that does play into it a little. Yeah, I know. I think it does play into it a little bit.
Yeah, for some
honestly,
people, that's fine, I guess.
Yeah, I know with guys like Greg Wyshynski, I remember he was very critical of him when he didn't come out and uh, kind of speak against Putin after he invaded Ukraine and whatnot. But still, what a player does on the ice and what he does away from it are two different things, and that shouldn't play into what he does on the ice. And it's not. And again, it's hard for me or you to sit here and sit in his shoes and be able to literally speak publicly against a guy who is the next closest thing to an Adolf Hitler, or a Stalin, or however you want to say it, when his whole family's there. He has family there. Like it's kind of hard, to be actively speak against a person like that when you saw what happened with Artemi Panarin when he did.
I was just going to bring that out. Yeah, I'm glad you referenced that. And there are a lot of people over there and journalists here that have ties to the country that, will discredit that too. And, he supports this guy. Like, look, here's where I'll leave it. Like, I don't love that he seems to be like chummy with Putin and he shows up at his events and goes, well, like, I don't love that. But, look, we live in a very online in particular, which I always argue is not a great actual mirror of society. But we live in a time in this internet age of people wanting things to be very black and white. Well, he said he supports Putin, so he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
And I just no one is willing to go, well, human beings are complicated people. Like, oh, okay, he's a bad guy. I'm not going to argue with you if that's your reason for writing him off. I think Vladimir Putin's a psychopath, but the amount of good he's doing, like they just announced the other day that he's going to be donating his goal total money as he chases the record down to that cancer fund, the Jimmy V Cancer Fund. The amount of work he's done for special needs hockey in the DC and surrounding area. Like, look, I don't need to run down all the charitable stuff he does. Like, if you want to write him off because of his political, seeming ties, like whatever, we're living in a weird time right now with our two countries, and there not many guys are not many guys are willing to comment on it. Like, you don't see guys running out and being like, oh, this is, I don't know. I just don't want to get wrapped up in stuff like that. Like, whether a guy says he supports this, he doesn't support this, he feels like this about this president, this political leader's this. I don't know, man. I just think he's a great goal scorer. He's been an incredible thing for the league. And I saw the comment in the chat there about ironic that we're cheering for Ovechkin to pass Gretzky when we're Canadian. I don't give a rat's ass about Wayne Gretzky. I didn't grow up watching him play. I was 5 years old when he retired. I was 8, actually. I respect the legacy of Wayne Gretzky. How can you not? He's the greatest player of all time, and him losing the goal record doesn't change that. He has more assists than anybody else has points. Yep, there's never been a more cerebral athlete that dominated a sport like that on an individual level. I'm not saying woo, bye Gretzky. I'm just happy for my guy. I'm a Capitals fan, and I'm happy that he did this. I'm not, it makes me anti-Canadian because he passed Gretzky. I don't give a rat's ass about Wayne Gretzky. I respect him and his legacy. It was a different time.
And what he's done for the game, and
different games.
Agreed.
Hockey wouldn't exist in California without Wayne Gretzky going down there.
Yeah,
so
you're 100% right.
It's not that I'm oh, Wayne sucks. That's not what I'm saying. I don't know.
I guess
there's trades. There's more trades.
More trades. Brady Kachuk. I know we have intern Joey here in the chat bringing it up too. I'm sorry, there's a lot of comments here, and we had Nick Fatty on it earlier, and I've been trying to pull them up. Normally I try to talk about most comments if they're relevant, but obviously there's just a ton in the chat today for obvious reasons with the NHL trade deadline. But intern Joey saw Kachuk's post-practice interview, was crying because he's best friends with Josh Norris, should just trade twos for him so he's not sad. I mean, how much does stuff like that play into it? I know his no move clause like does kick in, but it isn't a secret that he's been very indifferent, even though he signed that extension, indifferent about his feelings on the direction of the Ottawa Senators. I mean, could this be the straw that breaks the camel's back for a guy like Brady? And maybe he wants out if things don't go according to plan here, if they don't make the playoffs.
I don't think so, because honestly, like when people bring stuff like that up, it's like, yeah, it's going to affect him. Like he's going to be upset. They're best friends. But like, look, you're a professional here. You're a professional athlete. I expect Brady Tkachuk to have a whale of a game tomorrow in the biggest game of the season, maybe the biggest game in years for the Senators against the Rangers in a battle for playoff positioning.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be shocked if Dylan Cozens scored or set Brady up for a goal and they go nuts and he has a big game. These guys are professionals, man. Like not everything works out perfect for you. And I don't think Brady is that kind of guy. He loves that market. He's so invested in being an Ottawa Senator. And I have friends in that organization that say nothing but good things about him and how much he cares. He does not want to move, doesn't want to go anywhere. Yeah, it's going to be tough, obviously. Emotionally, he's a human being. He'll be affected quite obviously in an emotional state, saying goodbye to a good friend. But like, I don't know. Look, like that's life though. And like, I don't think we give these guys credit enough times for being able to just deal with real life. Like think about a day like today. Like we're all going, oh, what's our favorite team going to do? I can't wait for them to acquire this guy. It's like that guy that is being acquired has to uproot himself, maybe even a family, figure out a bunch of, home living situations, kids are in school. Like there's a lot of stuff that these guys have to juggle. That's real life. And these guys show up, they get traded to new markets and they deal with it and they play hockey because that's what they're paid to do. I don't think it's a thing where it's just like, well, Brady they traded his best friend. He must definitely want out of Ottawa. It's like, I see my best friend once in a blue moon. He lives on the West Coast. Like I don't get to see him every day. I'm not going to quit my job and move because I don't get to see him on a whim. Like that's just that's real life. I show up and I do my job and I see him when I see him. They'll hang out in the off season. They'll probably go on a trip together. It'll be fun.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
It's time to play hockey and make the playoffs in Ottawa. It's time to play hockey, and Brady Tkachuk will do that.
Yeah, I can. I'm gonna pull it up too here. The Charging Buffalo just tweeted it out. The remarks from both Brady Tkachuk and Linus Ullmark. I was trying to pull it up a second ago, but couldn't bring it up. Here we go. So it's an interview with Brady, both Brady and Linus Ullmark, one being a former Sabre. And I guess, like I said, Brady got really emotional, as expected. We remember when Ryan Miller got traded from Buffalo, Drew Stafford was pretty much crying in the postgame because they were such close friends and still are to this day. So pull that up here real quick. Here is as soon as it comes up, the interview with Brady Tkachuk in regards to the trade of his best friend Josh Norris to Buffalo.
Is there sound coming through on that?
Is it not playing?
I don't hear audio. If you do, I'm not sure. Huh.
I'm not sure. Not sure what's going on and why. Maybe it's because my AirPods are in. I don't know. That could be a reason why. But I guess again, Brady got pretty emotional. He pretty much just said there that he wanted to keep it short and sweet. That hockey is a business, and then that he found out shortly before practice that the deal was happening. So, yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. To your point, I think that both Tkachuks are, understand that this is a business, and Brady especially wouldn't let this affect maybe his future in Ottawa. I mean, he seems like a guy who takes his place as captain very seriously in Ottawa. I don't think he would walk away from all that because of something like this. I think that it would take a lot more dysfunction in Ottawa for him to get to the point and say, hey, you know what, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think this is something that would push him toward an edge of wanting out of there. And it's not like he's not friends with other guys on the team. Like I know him and Tim Stützle, if I'm not mistaken, in the very least his first couple years, and he may still be living with Brady. Like he was living with Brady. Like it's not like they're not buddies. And Timmy Stu, he had a heck of a game the other night. I bet he'll be good on Saturday against the Rangers too. Like they got a good young core of talented kids there that, it's time for them to take a big step forward. And what the Senators brass did here was send the team a message like, look, we feel like this type of player in Dylan Cozens can fit into this core and help us push for that next step, which is a playoff berth. And I would love to see them do it. It'd be a lot of fun. Another Canadian team in the mix. Like, yeah, that'd be sick. I would love to see it. I would really love, and I think everybody would, if the Leafs could find a way to hold on to the division lead and they somehow end up playing Ottawa in the first round. Because, man, when I was a little kid, like 10, 11, 12 years old, those Leafs Senators series, that was the event of the year. Like, bars would shut down in our area. Big Leaf Nation in Southern Ontario here, obviously. A lot of Senators fans, too. Like, I grew up in a really small town of like 2,000 people. You had to call and make reservations at the local establishment for Sens Leafs playoff games because it was rammed full. It would be so exciting if the Leafs and Senators played in the first round. It would be electric. It would be so much fun.
Yeah. I'm just reading up. Sorry, I'm reading up on more the Mikko Rantanen from Jeff Merrick. Sounds like the basis of the return for Mikko Rantanen when they get the deal done will be Logan Stankoven and 2 first-round picks. So, I mean, that's a decent return. I mean, obviously, you'd rather have Mikko Rantanen, right? But
well, if you're Dallas, yes, you would rather have Mikko Rantanen. Logan Stankoven is a really good young player that will slide in there and kind of get an opportunity. Maybe they even shift him to the wing. He'll get an opportunity to kind of fill that Martin Necas hole that Carolina thought Rantanen was like. Look, Eric Tulsky was being celebrated as a genius like a month ago. And now like people are going to be looking at him going like, what'd you make this deal for in the first place?
Yeah.
Because the whole impetus now is going to be if you weren't confident that you could get Rantanen signed and that was part of your basis for wanting to acquire him was him signing, why would you not ensure he'd do that before shipping out 2 really good young players and pick capital? And now, honestly, if I was Carolina, I would have kept him. Even if he walked. Because they're still a team that's trying to push deeper into the playoffs and make a cup run. And they have problems scoring in the playoffs. And you move this guy. Now, obviously, they felt differently because he wasn't gelling very well. The other night, he got a shot on goal, and it was his first shot on goal in 6 games, let alone points.
Yeah.
Clearly, there was a schism there, and now he's a Dallas Star. And, man, the Dallas Stars,
they're so
if
loaded.
You're a betting man, push your chips into the middle on those guys making the cup final. Dallas is good. Whoa.
Yeah. Another thing, too, is, like, you just imagine the players that they already have. Like, I saw, like, again, somebody upset that, we're not making the deal with Dallas for Cozens because there's apparently a rumor before that they had interest in him. Like, why not go up for Jason Robertson? Like, he doesn't have no movement clause. Like, yeah, you're not trading Jason Robertson. Like, no, why would you do that?
Honestly,
0% chance.
That's a wild fan theory trade, and I'm not trying to like disparage whoever said that. We're fans. We love coming up with armchair GM stuff. If I was the Dallas Stars owner and Jim Nill traded Jason Robertson for Dylan Cozens straight up, I would fire Jim Nill.
100%. And then probably build a statue of Kevin Adams.
That's yeah.
Yeah. all the reports coming out too that Vancouver and Montreal were also trying to acquire Dylan Cozens. Not
I'm
surprised
sure
that
they
he
were.
ended up in it. I'm not surprised he ended up in a Canadian market though. Any final thoughts before we get out of here? Obviously, we're closing in less than 2 hours from the deadline. I've been live here for we have over 5,000 people that have hung out with us here today on Two Goalies One Mic episode 181. But any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Well, I appreciate all those people listening to me ramble. It's been a lot of fun. It's great to come back. I miss you guys. It's good to get back on the show here.
Mm-hmm.
The Leafs getting Lawton for Grabenkin and a 2027 top 10 protected first round pick. And the Leafs also get a 4th and a 6th coming over with Lawton. I think that's a great deal for Toronto. Clarkey just texted me. He hates the deal. I'm like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. And there's rumors floating around too, because outside of the Rantanen deal officially closing, which it hasn't yet, but sounds like it's gonna. Outside of that, there hasn't been, outside of the Cozens thing, a huge move made today. But I'm seeing rumors floating around that Vancouver, with the position they're in, there's teams sniffing around Brock Besser.
Yeah, he's going to be a UFA.
That would be a very big move for somebody who, feels like they could add a big time scoring winger. That would be Brock Besser leaving Vancouver too. I mean, I feel like that would break a lot of hearts in that city, man.
You saw it happen first with Bo Horvat and then JT Miller for obviously the drama surrounding him and Elias Pettersson. I think personally, and this is no offense against Elias Pettersson, I think he's an insanely talented hockey player, but I mean, look at the season he's having, the drama that's surrounded, him and JT Miller. And I mean, I don't know, man. You're taking, in my opinion, at this point, you're with $11.5 million cap hit. You're taking a huge risk if you're trading for Elias Pettersson. Huge risk.
I'll say this on that note, and we'll see if something comes down with Besser. I mean, geez, what a play. I love Brock Besser and his story too. He's had a very, emotional journey in his pro hockey career, obviously losing his dad, and incredible stuff. Look that up if you're not familiar with Brock Besser. Like he's seems like a gem of a kid. I'll say this. Is there a more volatile market right now than the Vancouver Canucks? Like, there's markets that are volatile for other reasons. Buffalo for the ongoing failures there, stuff like that. But, like, I feel like I was just there. I was there a couple weeks ago on a vacation. And there's people out there wearing Canucks gear that are pissed. And I completely understand why. The team that they had last year and the impressive regular season that they had, and now it's turned into this, people out there are lividly angry. And it's for very good reason. There's some guys on that team, EP40 in particular, that have to take a long look at themselves in the mirror and go, is this the type of legacy I want to establish? Clearly, there's still something in there. The kid, like you said, he's an incredible player. We've seen him get 100 points before. He's so dynamically skilled. Something's up there, man, and he's got to try and screw it. It has to be. It has to be.
Yeah.
Because you can't turn around from like getting 100 points, 90 points, being he was a rock star when he arrived. Absolute rock star. And clearly that guy's still in there. But he's lost in a haunted house within his head right now, and he's got to find a way out because, man,
I like that analogy.
Jeez.
I like that analogy. Lost in a haunted house inside his own head. I like that analogy a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're making a trade for Elias Pettersson, if he is indeed on the table, and I know I have some friends up in Vancouver, my buddy Malcolm, Sean Warren, and then obviously, Sam from the broadcast. If you're aware, I'm in a kind of like a Twitter group chat with them, and I know they would be very, very, very upset and ready to riot in Vancouver if they did trade Pettersson. But I mean, his value, in my opinion, is probably at as lowest as it possibly could be with the production that he's had this season. So I think if you're Vancouver and you're looking to trade him, it's not happening until next year, right? Like, you got to hope that he turns things around here post deadline. And I don't know, man. I think to your point, I think the culture there is just too toxic for him now. I think that the pressure and just the criticism, I don't know. I don't. Maybe they did trade the wrong player between him and JT Miller. I don't know, but I think
Hard to say.
Much like Dylan Cozens, we had Lazzy on last night, and he said that I think Cozens is a guy who would benefit a lot from a change of scenery. And I agree with that. I think same thing with Pettersson. I think you could probably get him back to the level he was playing at 2 years ago. Because not even last year, because last year was a little bit downer year compared to the year before. But I think that a change of scenery would do him good.
Potentially. I think that what they need to do is be patient still for a little bit and take the off season with him and really try and do whatever they can to try and help him get back to a good place mentally. It'll be interesting to see. The Rantanen trade is official now. It's been officially
made official.
Yeah,
I'm looking for it right now.
That's something, man. Those Dallas Stars, I mean, they were already my pick to make the Cup final, and I feel even more emboldened in that now, man. I love what Jimmy Nill's doing down there. That's putting the balls on the wall.
Must be fun to have a competent GM and owner.
It must
Johnny
be.
From Johnny Lazarus 1 minute ago, I'd be interested to see Carolina use something from this return to try and get Brock Besser, guy we were just talking about. That's
exciting. A really smart thing from Laz. I completely agree. Because if you're Carolina and the whole thing here was to get better and get good scoring support for this core that they clearly believe in, honestly, take at least one of those first round picks, if not both of them, and give them to Vancouver and get Besser and sign him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that from Laz. Good thought.
Yeah. Made official from Frank Saravelli. To Dallas, Mikko Rantanen with an 8-year extension in place. And then to Carolina, Logan Stankoven, 2026 first round pick, 2027 first round pick. Plus some smaller pieces going back to Carolina. We'll see. Again, hour and 30 minutes until the deadline. We're going to get out of here. Maybe depending on what happens here between now and 3 o'clock, we might see it go live again a little bit later for a much shorter amount of time, not an hour and 20 minutes. But I appreciate you all tuning in. The chat was full and pretty active today for the hour, 20 minutes we've been on. Can't thank you guys enough. And if you've enjoyed this content, please, if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the bell notification, and most importantly, like this video. Helps with the algorithm, so make sure you hammer that like button. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can find me at Duane S39. You can find my guest host here, Ryan Drury, play-by-play man for the Guelph Storm at Storm PX Drury on formerly Twitter. You can find us on Facebook too, or if you just audio only, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, just search Two Goalies, One Mike. You can find us there. I am Duane for Two Goalies, One Mike. This has been episode 181, deadline day. Thanks again to Nick Fatty for hopping on, and we will talk to you later. As always, go Sabres.